Hey everyone, it's Joe Carroll. Honored to be with everyone on the Solid State Logic channel today. Hope everyone out there is well and good. And if you are a complete access subscriber, you're about to get weller and gooder because our bundle is growing. So let's take a look at the screen here. And we see one of the tools that has become a standard for many of us, the EQ2. It's a wonderful tool that goes alongside all of our channel strips like the 4KE and the 4KB because we can do all kinds of things and get like really surgical and do multiple points, and it's a great tool. It's been a wonderful tool for me. That said, why not make it better? You know, one thing about solid state logic is they never rest on their laurels. It's always progression and what's new and how can we make things better, and that's exactly what they've done. So we have the X-DynEQ. Ta-da! There it is. As you can see, it still looks very similar to the EQ2, but has obviously more features. And that's what we are here to talk about today. And one thing about the EQ2, if you already have a bunch of presets saved in there, I'm happy to report they actually import directly into the DynEQ, so you can just take off where you left off and go with this new tool. So about this new tool, let's just briefly talk about some of the power this thing has. 24 bands. You see that it has 4 on the screen now, but look, I can just keep on clicking and keep on clicking, and I get 24 bands. And if that wasn't enough, those 24 bands can each be dynamic. And I can choose between 20 different EQ types and filter shapes. New things like notch filters, band pass, and tilt EQs, upward expansion, downward compression, per band mid-side treatment. This thing is absolutely a monster. And when we're talking about the dynamic EQ portion of it, it has automatic attack, automatic release, automatic threshold options. And you can use any one of those in automatic, but turn automatic off and dial exactly what you want on the other ones. So if you want to adjust the threshold, but use automatic attack and release, you can, or vice versa. So this is an absolute monster. So let's just start putting it to the test right here, okay? You'll see it has some similar characteristics to other newer products in the solid state family, with the screen here on top, and right here is where we choose what we see in that display. I'm just going to leave it at the default in and out. Right here, we can choose between series and parallel for our points. Series would be the most common, but parallel can kind of imitate some graphic EQs, even like the massive passive. So it's really cool, and we'll get into that. Our view here, I've found that to be really useful as I was playing around with it. So right now we have 20 dB of gain and cut visible, but if you want to reduce that because you don't use anything quite that drastic and you want a little more fine-tuned detail, you can change that. Right here, we can see our phase. Of course, you know, there we go. We'll move a couple of these so you can see. We can see our phase response of the EQ. We can see the step response. And watch this. I can turn this little thing on in the bottom right-hand corner, and anything that I click on, I get a pop-up. Isn't that cool? All right, so we'll just turn all these off. And the FFT, as I push play, you'll see the audio in the screen down here, you know, basically like a frequency graph of what's happening. So that's really cool. Let me go back to factory default. So I typically leave the FFT on. We already talked about this, so let's go over to focus. Focus mode is very cool. Let's say this is on a stereo bus, for example. We can see and treat in stereo. We can choose just the left or the right, or the mid and the side. So this is a valuable tool. You're not going to want to forget this button right here. Left and right, input, output. We can trim it. We can gain it down a little bit if we need to on both sides. Just real common sense stuff. One other thing, though, that's really cool is down here on the bottom, we can choose this. So any point that is selected, we see all the things we can do here, right? We can change the filter shapes, the filter types. We can change the frequency, the gain, you know, all our dynamic properties are down here. Or we can see a piano roll. So anything, any note, let's say we create a mid band here. We want to notch filter something that we know exactly where it's at. We can actually choose the note on the piano. It's extremely cool, I think. We have the high quality, the HQ that we can turn on. And this thing, it does have anti-cramping technology built in. I've played a little bit with really boosting the top end to extremes just to see if it broke up and how harsh it got or how smooth it stayed. And it sounds good. So the code is solid in this thing. And of course, we can change the graphic size right here. And we also discussed this little question mark button, so it tells us exactly what's going on. So I've got a mix here that I've used in a couple other tutorials and a couple other things, and this song has it just always wins people over. So I thought I would use something that hits a lot of us. So it's kind of country, kind of rock, real drums, aggressive guitars, great singer. So let's just get busy. So right now, I have the mix, and I've kind of deconstructed it a little bit, so it's not quite finished anymore. And that's the whole idea, because I want to go in and correct some things with the DynEQ. So right now we're hearing the mix go through Vintage Drive, the DynEQ, a little bit of bus compression, and the stereo imager from the Fusion. All right, so it's just a little bit better, but everything that you see is zeroed out on the screen, and we'll get to that as we go. But let's listen to this mix completely flat, minus the Fusion things we discussed, and pick out some treble spots, okay?
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another life.
Before we get started, I want to say that's my friend James Dupre, a great artist here in Nashville, and I really appreciate, James, you allowing us to use your music for our demonstration. Okay, the first thing we're going to do on a stereo bus a lot of times is a little bit of a smiley face, right? So we're going to add a little bit of low end. So let's just start doing that. And I'm going to mute James' vocal so we can really focus on what it's doing to the bass guitar, the bass drum, okay? Okay. Also, a lot of times we do a little bit of a smiley face up at the top, right? And what I want to do is I'm going to use way too much, because I want you to hear the caliber of the high end. It has the non-cramping type technology built into it. The coding, the algorithms are just very good, very clean, and you can boost a lot of high end, and it stays very, very attractive, very pretty. That's 8.5 dB at 7,800 cycles. So if it was going to get harsh, it would get harsh there. So that's substantial. Okay, now let's quit bragging on it and just do something that sounds good for the song. Okay, I'm going to turn that off and on and just listen to how much sparkle that's adding. Yeah, getting a little more, just a little more air around the snare drum and the electric guitars. I really like that. Another thing we would do very often is we're going to put a high pass filter in, and that's what we can just right here add a band, change that type. And one thing I want to talk about on the high pass filters is we're not just stuck with one thing. I'm going to turn band 2 off for just a minute. We're going to focus on the high pass filter and check it out. Look at all these different types that we have. That's really cool. I really feel like this guy right here would be very useful on individual tracks within the mix, whereas something like this would be really good in mastering. But what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to stick on custom Q, and I'm going to play with the Q here for just a second and check this out. One thing we've learned about old analog EQs and the high pass filter that's built into them, and why we liked some of them so much, is they actually caused a little bit of a resonance, a little bit of a bell at the cutoff frequency that actually boosted bottom end. So they sounded really great on some instruments because we got more 80 cycles on the snare drum. We had more 50 cycles on a bass drum, things like that. So it's really a really fun trick. But right now I'm just going to keep it at its normal state. Let's turn this band back on. And now let's see if there's anything in the upper mids we want to add. Oh, and this is a cool feature. So if I know I'm looking for something specific on band 3 right here, I can choose this little button right here. It looks like headphones, and it's going to solo in what I'm listening to. Okay, that's causing the snare drum to be a little bit more important. So let's add just a touch of that. Okay, just because I've removed a lot of other processing, I could use a little bit of a low mid dip if I wanted to, but I don't think I'll do that. Let's just do a before and after on the stereo bus. Yeah, I like that. Just a touch of sweetness because I want to do some things down line here, so I don't want to over bake it on the stereo bus. All right, now let's start diving into some other sources. Let's go right to lead vocal, and kind of start playing with some of the features that this guy has.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true.
All right, a couple things hit me in the face right away. Sibilance, a little too much sibilance, and too much low mids. I cut him on a U47 style microphone, and while it sounds incredible in many ways, one of the first things we do within a busy mix when we have a male voice with lots of fullness is we start cutting away low mids.
'Cause in reality,
In fact, let's do this. I'm also going to solo up his vocal just so we can dial that. You guys can hear exactly what I'm doing more.
'cause in reality, the world don't need another.
All right. Remember I talked earlier about the FFT? See how it's really helping me find exactly where the buildup is? I'll turn it off,
'Cause in reality, the world don't.
but I'll turn it on, and you'll see.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need.
So we can see right in here.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song.
All right. So let's just reduce that a little bit.
'Cause in reality, the world don't.
Okay, now this is where we can start getting crazy. Let's say we really want to cut down some of this 165, this lower octave stuff in his voice, but only when he's really when he's down there. When he starts to belt and his tone thins out a little bit more, maybe we want it to stay fuller. So we're trying to create a more consistent thing. So let's just see this button right here, boink, and we can actually let's enable this larger view right here, and we can turn that into a dynamic band.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true.
And we can right now see it set to automatic on the attack, the release, and the threshold, which I will say in my playing time with this thing so far, generally decisions based on the content are very, very good. But what I want to do on the thresholds, I want to adjust it a little bit by hand.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another.
Very cool. Now let's take and go to this band right here, turn it into a high pass filter, move that up, and let's do that. Let's use that one. Why not? It's really sharp this way, and let's go all the way up to around 90 cycles.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too
So
many.
let's add some air, and let's put him in the mix and just see how much air we need. A little sizzle.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true.
Now, to me, that air is going to be necessary to get him to cut through the mix. By the time if this was a real mix and was really shining up those electric guitars and the overheads and everything like we would expect to, he's going to need some air. But of course, that's bringing out all the sibilance. So let's use this band right here, and let's just narrow that Q down a little bit, and let's hunt for that sibilance. Okay, I'm going to use this tool right here, this little headphone button, to find exactly where that sibilance is at.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't.
Okay, that really airy, whistly sibilance is the one that's really bothering me. Of course, I can narrow it down to about 7K and widen the Q a little bit.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need.
Okay, so let's take the gain back down to 0. So we kind of found it now. Let's take our range on we're going to go dynamic mode right here. We're going to engage it right here. And let's turn the attack off of auto because I want to go fast. And now, let's see. Let's set the range for around a maximum of 6 dB of reduction. And let's just start bringing the gain down until it sounds great, okay?
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't.
Much better. Okay, so I'm going to take the threshold off of automatic, and I want to use this right here because I really want to see where those S's are popping.
'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song.
So that's the kind of thing that we can do. Some other spots that I heard problems in that I would use some kind of a multi-band device for correction is the acoustic guitar. Check it out and you'll agree. Okay, this is a stereo mic situation, and we have a body mic and we have a neck mic. So the tone of those are a little unbalanced. I love the width. I love the width that we're getting, but we need to change the tone between the left and the right a little bit before we would ever add any kind of EQ like a 4KE or channel strip 2 and make some global changes. It needs some correction. So what we're going to do, this is a stereo source, so we're going to go into just the left side. Okay, because it's a little too thick. So I want to create a band that exists only in the left side, and let's find that low mid buildup. Sounds like about right there. Now, this would be a great spot to talk about one really cool thing that this plugin offers. Remember how we discussed that it had like 20 different types of filter shapes, and this is where we would really start seeing some of those. So by default, it's in classic symmetrical, and you'll see that we have all these options right here. Classic asymmetrical. Okay, so you're like, well, that didn't seem to change, but watch this. If we're going to use this as a cut, which we are, because we're trying to get rid of some low mids, we can change to classic asymmetrical, and look at that. It changes. And that is very reminiscent of some vintage consoles. So you can, for example, getting rid of some ugly sustain in percussive elements like tom-toms and snare drums. Some of our favorite EQs to do that kind of a thing were a classic asymmetrical. So when we're boosting, it's nice and broad, but as we're cutting, it's a little bit more focused. So we can kind of recreate some of those tools from the past. But it doesn't stop there. We go to proportional 1, proportional 2, proportional 3, and you'll see how it tightens up at the top. So as we, watch this, as we boost, our width stays the same, and it gets narrower at the top. So we're doing that thing where we're not just making an obnoxious boost, a really tight obnoxious boost that sounds unnatural. We get that naturalness of the wide bell at the bottom, but then it sweeps in, and we can really hammer like a 5K on an electric guitar. So we get presence around 5K, but we get that bite at exactly 5K. And that's a trick for some analog devices like SSL and API. Some of those EQs that we love so much are proportional in design, and they're really, really effective. All right, so let's go to classic asymmetrical for this acoustic guitar. Okay, so now we're only cutting in the left, so we're hearing when the body and the low mids sound the same in the left and the right speaker. Bam, right there. Now, also, I can hear there's more pick attack coming from the neck mic, obviously. I mean, that's what we would expect. So let's add a little more air on just the left side. So we're going to go to our shapes, and we're going to choose, I want to choose a high shelf. So just a gradual thing from around 6K probably. Okay, now we have a better starting spot to do actual stereo processing that would fit this thing in the mix. So now let's remove a little body overall. That's a little thick in the mix. We're going to go down here. We're going to create a high pass filter by choosing that one. And we don't want anything under 100 cycles on an acoustic guitar like this. Now let's add a little air and brilliance at the top end. And I bet in the mix we have a lot nicer image. Wonderful. I wouldn't be able to do that without that mid-side treatment on a stereo track. That's wonderful. You know, another thing that was obnoxious to me listening back to these more raw tracks. And I'm the one that recorded it. I have no one to blame but myself. But that said, there's a crash cymbal on the, and I think it's just the size of the cymbal. I think it's like a 16 or something because it's really bright, very loud, and the crash cymbal that's on the right is darker and more controlled. So as he plays the crashes, I don't like the imbalance of the two. Check it out. That's a perfect spot. Listen, the one over here is a little quieter. The one over here is obnoxious loud. Okay, so let's use X-Dyn to kind of correct that within the mix. So I'm going to go to focus. I'm going to go to left. Why is all my problems on the left? I don't understand that. And now let's find where we're going to create a point that exists only on the left-hand side. Let's find the problem where that symbol is. That's pretty good. That's pretty obnoxious. Okay, let's make it pretty wide. And let's do this. Let's make this band. I'm going to go down here to where we have the large view. I'm going to make this dynamic. And we're going to set a range of around 3 dB for now. Let's just do that. And let's just use everything in automatic here. Okay, here is where I can adjust the threshold because it's taking down too much information in automatic mode. So now we can just watch for where this peaks. Right there. You can see the snare drum hits are just below it, and when that cymbal hits, it's a little above it. I'm going to get a little more aggressive, and I want my ratio to be a little harder. Wonderful. Now let's go back into stereo mode. Get rid of a little 500 cycles or so. We'd probably do a high pass filter in here. Don't need any of that. Maybe now that we're in stereo, we can add a little bit of overall shine. Now let's see if we have a little bit more balanced image on our drum set. We do. Now I would even need to do more if this was a finished mix. I would need to get a little bit more aggressive with it, but I'm more or less just trying to focus on showing you the power of this unit because it's amazing. Another thing I would do would be bass guitar. A lot of times, electric bass guitars have at least some of the studio players. You know, it's wild the tone differences we get on our bass guitars as mixers, but the pro studio guys seem to have an enormous amount of bottom end, and it's amazing. But sometimes it conflicts with the low end of the kick drum, the low end of electric guitars that we want to be really muscly. So what I would do with a bass guitar, and let's solo him up. Now this one doesn't really have as much of that kind of problem, but nonetheless, let's just go through the steps here. So around 150 cycles to me is a little ugly. So I can easily turn that into, and we're going to do this view thing. And we want a wide Q. On a bass guitar, never use a really tight Q because you start removing individual notes more than just a frequency range. And so we'll make this dynamic. And so it's only when that guitar is getting muddy in that area, that it's going to kick in. On this guitar, it's going to be constant. So we're not going to really see a huge amount of play here. Let's turn the threshold off. But that little bit of cloudiness right there is better to me. Now, we were going for a really aggressive bass guitar sound, a lot of distortion, as you can hear. And to fit in the mix, we're going to need even more of that. Listen, in the mix for the bass guitar, and it doesn't have enough aggression or bite. I mean, it's cool. We've tightened up the tone on it quite a bit already with just this one band. But let's do this. Let's use this mid band as an expansion tool. So let's set it to dynamic. Let's set it to expand, and let's use that little headphone button to get a really good listen to where it's at. And let's, gosh, just for fun, let's do a proportional bell. Seems like right there would be some nice mid-range aggression that would pop out. So let's check our threshold. Very cool. Let's take that attack. Let's just play with it. There we go. Let's make the attack super fast, so as soon as he strikes the note, it jumps out. There we go. Now we're on to something. Let's check this out. Okay, before and after. So it's a lot more aggressive, but also lean just a little bit where it needs to be. Now let's hear the difference in the mix. Yeah, so it's biting just a little bit harder and competing with those electric guitars now. And if we wanted to make it even more drastic, we could go in with this band. We just create another one and make a steady band. So that one's dynamic, so it's punching when he's punching, but we could also just create some more overall upper mids for bite on top of that. So it's really jumping when he jumps, but we're still getting more overall clarity too. Man, that that is fun. That's a crazy tool. Let's listen to that in the track. Absolutely a beast. All right, another thing we haven't touched on yet is the fact that this thing has tilt functions built in. So let's do this. Let's drop a bullet point right here. And let's go down to this view just so it's bigger for us. And let's go to the types of EQ and let's choose tilt right here. And check this out on the B3. How often do we hear a file and think, well, it's just dark, so it just kind of needs a scene change to where there's less of the lower octave stuff and more of the top octave stuff. Watch what an EQ, a tilt style EQ will do. It's just that easy, and you can adjust the center point. So let's listen to it on a B3 here. So we can control how much, where that mid boost, where that's starting to happen. Probably something like that will work in this mix. Wonderful. Just such an easy to use tool. So fast and easy. And another thing we really haven't spent a lot of time on is the mid side for the sake of stereo enhancement. Mid side treatment is really good for is creating this illusion of stereo width because we can really enhance certain frequencies in just the sides or just the mids or cut something in just the mids. And I think a really good spot in this mix to do something like that would be this bus that's just all the guitars and keyboards. So let's go in and let's go into side mode. Let's create a new point that's going to be, we want to do a high shelf, I think. And this will be the sides only. So we're getting more of that aggression of those power chords a little bit, starting around 4K or so, and just all the air and everything that's up there. Also, what we could do is go into mid only, and we could also clear a little bit of that space that's overlapping in the middle where the kick drum, snare drum, and bass guitar and lead vocal are trying to live. And we know there's a lot of content down around, in between 200 and 300 and 400. So let's just find, kind of some girth down there. We'll cut that just a little bit. Now let's do a before and after, and hearing the mid-side treatment, giving the sides more energy, cutting a little bit of low energy out of the mids and the middle only, and also it'll create this illusion of just a little bit more stereo width. Check it out. How cool is that? I think really this thing is so vast and varied that we could spend another hour together and still just kind of tickle what it's capable of. But we don't have an hour because we have places to go, things to do, and people to see, right? We're busy people. But hopefully this little example video is enough to give you kind of an idea of just how powerful this thing is, how you would use it in your own mixes. And remember, if you are a Complete Access subscriber, this is yours. Just go get it and download it and get busy. If you're not a Complete Access subscriber, I mean, why not, right? It's solid state logic, man. You know what I mean? I get excited just saying the name. It's a wonderful bundle, friends. It really is. I honestly love having these tools, use them every day. Just incredible stuff that makes me happy to see on my screen or in hardware form. That said, I had a good time and I hope you did too. Happy mixing, everyone.